Hey Dreamers, this is Jack Plays, and today we're going to do a new tutorial, and this time where I'm going to teach you how to make more realistic rain. I have been in the past making some sceneries and dreams where you can control the weather. As you see right now, this is one of my forests, my once upon a time forest that I did pretty much in the beginning of the dream. When dreams came out, I made this forest with some weather system, and I really want to show you a little bit of how I made a more realistic feel to make rain in dreams. There are already tons of different ways to make rain. I'm just going to show you a few tips and tricks or how to make a more realistic raindrop into the night sky, or not in the night sky, but more into the environment itself. Like I said, there will be different ways to make rain, and there are tons of different styles that you can go for. I'm just going to show you a little bit of certain styles and certain approaches how to make rain more realistic. And if you want to go a little bit more for cartoony, I will show you some options for that as well, but you have to a little bit play around with some settings for that to get a little bit more of a cartoony vibe. But for this tutorial, I'm just going to show you a little bit more of how to make realistic raining instead of cartoony. That's not really what this tutorial is about, but I will show you some options still, so you can you can practice yourself for what's your own style, of course. I'm going to leave this creation, of course, and now I'm going to show you right away. Let me see. Go into the new element. So what we need to do is we need to make raindrops, and to do that we need to go into, I'm first going to always disable the hover effect, of course. But what we need to do is we need to make paint strokes in order to make the rain possible. And you probably maybe already knew this or maybe not, but this is really the easiest way to make rain with. There are of course different things you can do also, maybe use painting strokes and stuff like that, and then turn it into painting. That's a way to do it. But I will first show you the painting option. So if you're going into paint mode, you have tons of options to use your brush tool, your brush. Basically there's different types of brushes, or it's not really a brush, it's a sort of brush, but it's more of painting, and you can choose between certain things. Now the thing what I'm often using myself is this splat one. You can also use the straight lines if you prefer more straight lines, and that use it I like as for rain, but I kind of use splatting. And the reason why I like to use this splatting is because it feels more naturally, and especially if it's dropping down from the sky, it doesn't go into a straight line, but you're seeing a little bit of that droppery splattery around the raindrop, and it gives you a little bit more realistic feel to the rain falling itself. And if you're curious how that looks, you can go to one of my creations, and Once Upon a Time is one of them, and there you can see, if you're turn on the rain, you can see that there are a little bit splats around the stripe of strokes. So that's why I'm using this. So to make sure that you're going to use a good looking raindrop, we need to draw a little bit of a longer line from top to down. So I'm just going to go a little bit up and make it also a little bit smaller already, and then we're going to use, if you have a controller, or if you have a move controller, just stroke it down a little bit. And what you can do is you can if you press from soft to harder, and then from soft again, your stroke will start very thin, and the harder you press, the more stroke that will rise up. So you can play a little bit around with that. You can add more to that as well. You can also add a little bit more options to this later on, so you don't really need to do this per se. There's already options in the stroke itself where you can tweak this a little bit. So now we have like 2 strokes, but I'm not going to use these 2 strokes next to each other. I'm just going to use them by scoping in, and I'm just going to place this a little bit like so, because rain doesn't always fall in the same direction. It goes a little bit variation in the falling. It depends, of course, like what type of rain is falling. You have like soft rain, hard rain. You have like I don't know, like wind effect and stuff like that, which we can also do, and I'll probably show that already in this tutorial as well. But I would suggest to make 3 different strokes. That's more than enough to get a little bit like variations to the scene. I'm just going to reuse this and maybe turn it around a little bit. And I put it a little bit further away, like so. So now we have like 3 different strokes happening in the same sculpture. I'm just going to remove this so you can see it a little bit better. And now we need to tweak. So everything in what you need to do now is tweak the paint stroke itself. So we're going to open its menu, and then we have like in the 3rd option, we have the stroke properties. Here we have like the fade in, fade out. I always do that with rain because like it basically like falls into and then like it's splashed into the ground. So like it's fade in, it's fade out, gives a little bit more natural feeling to it. You can also go into the flag properties. This is where you can make the raindrop a little bit more steady. Like if you stretch it enough, you can see that like it becomes more of like a 1 stroke. And you can also add a little bit more volume to this. I won't like suggest to do this too much because like you really need to make the rain as like thin as possible so it gets a really realistic feel to that raindrop. I don't really like to have impasto that much. I think that 20% is maybe already like fine by its default. You can play a little bit around with it if you like. So if I zoom in a little bit, you can see that like the splats are a little bit spread out. If you prefer it this way, I would not really suggest to do this, but if you prefer it this way, you can like play a little bit around with these settings as well with the impasto. But I would like leave this kind of alone for now. So what we need to do now is we need to make sure that like the raindrops are fully around our camera. So we're going to say around camera, and as you can see, this looks really weird, right? This like looks like grass and not like rain. Well, we need to fix that. So first we have like here some options with the copies, the spread, and the scale jitter. The spread copies, you have to be a little bit careful. I will not suggest you to do it 100%. Because that's like if you have multiple like flecks into your environment, it's going to be not fun to render at all, especially if you're using a PlayStation 4 base console. I would just like using a little bit of spread. So we're going to spread out the rain, and we're also going to use the jitter, and that means that like the strokes will like yeah, go a little bit randomness. I will like do maybe 60% of the scale jitter. I think that's fine to me. And now we need to animate the rain falling. So we're going to go into the animation of the sculpting option, and then you need to go a little bit, and we also need to play the stuff here so we can see what we are doing. So press R3, then it will like like play your scene already, so you can like rain falls pretty hard, like pretty fast. So we need to make sure that that's going to like, I would say around 1600 is fine. You can also go for 1800. I think I mostly do sweet spot is 1800. So you can go for a little bit of that. Also, depending, of course, like how hard the rain is falling, you also have like very slow rain and stuff like that. Okay, so what we need to do now, we need to make sure that we have the pulse on, and the pulse on, you can already see that like it is already a little bit showing, but it's still weird, right? It still doesn't make any sense. You can still have like offset so that the strokes will not like all in the, like fall in the same direction. But this is not really what you want. You really want to make sure that the tail of the raindrop is slower. Or what you can also do is tweak a little bit of the endpoint here. or just go a little bit of like playing around with the flag density is something what you can do. But you can like just like play a little bit around with these settings as you're like want to do. So but coming back to the animation, like you can like say that the trail length, maybe we can go a little bit faster, to be honest. Let's make it very hard raining, and maybe go for the offset like so. The trail maybe a little bit smaller than that. You can of course like play a little bit around with these settings. Like if you really want to make like smaller rain droppings, just like put the tail of the length of the tail a little bit smaller, so you get like a really like small drops that's falling down, and it feels a little bit more naturally. Because like also depends of course on the weather, but you have of course like sometimes like a little bit like longer rain strokes happening. I think that 15% is mostly what I'm using. So I think I'll go keep for the 15%. I think I'm just going to do it a little bit faster, maybe. Let's go for 5,000%. Let's do that. I think that 5,000% is more than enough for a good raining fall. There you go. So we're almost done. We go into the goat properties, the first tab you're having here, and then we need to like tweak some settings to make it more realistic. First of all, we're going to like set this finishing slider. We're going to set this to 100%. So now we can do everything with these more options. So we can now say like we want to have it a little bit more shiny. Don't do it like 0% or never go 100%. Always find a little bit like in between the stuff. I think that 10% is fine, or 12% or 15% should be fine for some reflection. You can also do a little bit of like waxiness, which means if there is some light into your scene, sorry, if there's some light into your scene, it will shine a little bit through the raindrops. It gives you a little bit more realistic feel to the raindrops itself as well. And some people are using glow strokes. I'm not really like suggest you to do this. So leave this one alone. But like a lot of people are using this because they think that like the rain will like be more visible. But I will not suggest you to do that. So instead of like doing this, we're going into the tint color. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can see what I'm doing a little bit better. So in this one, we're going not to go for straight white because that's not really realistic. So we're going a little bit to like soft blue. That's the green. There we go. Soft blue, but not too much. Just like put it a little bit in between the white and the soft blue. So it gives you a little bit of like more of a rain feeling. You can play a little bit around with it. Don't go too far in the blue section. Also make sure that like the tint amount is set on 200% so that the color will blend in a little bit better. But find a little bit of for yourself the sweet spot of where you think the rain looks a little bit more realistic to your own likings, to your own like to how you if you're like saying like, okay, this looks like a little bit more realistic, just play a little bit around. I would suggest to go for the soft blue and then find the sweet spot between white and blue and find the spot where you think that this is a little bit more rainy feeling, like watering feeling. And then we are basically almost done. The only thing what we need to do is that rain is not very visible in real life. It is visible, like especially if we see light reflecting on the raindrops, because they're all like prisms in water, and that like bounce the light back. So that's why the only reason why you can see rain. But if it's like nighttime without any like light source happening, you can't see it because rain is just it's liquid, and liquid is like transparent. So what we need to do, we're going into the opacity option here, and we slide this almost to like when it's like 15%. You can even go further if you want to. It all depends on how your rain is looking, but I would go a little bit between. Sometimes it happens to do it like 5%. again, you're not really going to see it at the moment right now, because like the environment around me is already blue. But like play a little bit around with the opacity, but like do it as low as possible. I think that 15% for now is the very sweet spot. And you can see that now the rain is like falling still. To see it a little bit better, we can put a little bit of like a sun gadget in here to show you a little bit of how that looks. So if we put a sun gadget in here, and I will show you also with some lights, and I need to tweak some settings in my sun gadget, so that you can see how it is going to look if you have this on a environmental situation. I'm just doing it a little bit quickly though. But as you can see, like it's really like hard to, especially like on the stream probably, or on my video, it's really hard to tell. So we really need to make sure that the settings, I need to find the stroke here. There we go. So you really need to like find the right balance for your creation, but never go for the 100% opacity, because I don't really like that. It's very cartoony. If you really want to go for the cartoony style, what I said earlier in this video, put it like on 100% and you get a little bit more of like a cartoony vibe of your raindrop. So it's not really going to be that super realistic, but a little bit of like cartoony. Like if you have like a video game or creation that's a little bit more cartoony into your style, then I would not really suggest you to do opacity, because like that will break your style. That's like a style break, and that looks really weird if you have like your whole environment is very cartoony and then your rain is suddenly very realistic. That doesn't really make sense. That's really breaking the the style break basically. So like play a little bit around with these settings here until you think that this is like belongs to your settings, to your environment, to your art style. 100% I will use more for the cartoony vibe, and almost like 5%, 10%, 15% is a little bit more realistic vibe. And it also depends, of course, like on the surroundings. So like I said, if you have like stuff into your scene, I will place quickly some stuff so you can see what I'm talking about. Let me put a wall. Let me do this one here. Let me use this is one of the creations that I also doing every Tuesday. So you can already see what I have done so far at the moment of recording of the video. Let's put some door here. There we go, connected to this one. And the thing is that with rain, like if you have like rain dropping, falling into your creation, you're also like probably going to like use some lights effect. So for example, if you're now going to use a sphere or diffuse, you're going to see the rain a little bit better. And that's why I did the settings of what we did before, is if you're putting a little bit more waxiness to your raindrop, the light will now also, and also because of like the shininess, we'll also set this on 15%. So they're both really working now. So we get like a little bit more like reflection to the raindrop itself, and if we put it like waxiness, it gets like transparent as well, extra transparent, so more waxiness basically. And then you get like the light reflecting into the raindrop. So if you have like a lantern, for example, and it's raining, you can see that the raindrops are falling like near the light of the lantern. And if you're like moving a little bit away from the lantern into more darkness, then the rain is a little bit harder to see. It's just like if you go outside in the dark and it's raining outside, you mostly only can tell if it's raining. You need to look at the street lights, because like rain is, like I said, it's transparent and it's liquid, so and there's prisms, and if there's like light bouncing through the water, it will go all the way everywhere in the world, and that's how you can observe the raindrop. So that's basically how you make like realistic raindrop. There are like different ways to, the longer strokes you make, the better outcome you will get from making a raindrop. So now we did really like on smaller stroke, like this very like smaller stroke that we painted. But you can also do, let me do that really quickly as well. I always need to. The only problem is like it's always hard to get the raindrop again. There you go. So you can also do like longer brush strokes and longer rain strokes. I now deleted the rain part. So if you go in back into the modes and go into paint mode, use the splat. I'm not going to use the grid for this. I kind of want to do it a little bit of like, and then we're going to like paint a little bit longer stroke down. So we're going to make it right there. So like, okay, that's like, I hated my screen. Let me do that again. Just make it very small. And just like paint it a little bit longer. And if you then tweak it again, you will get a little bit better result into your rain. So if we now just doing the same thing, like spread this one out, maybe a little bit of loosiness, not too much. Soft in, soft out, around the camera. And let's go for animation. And then go for this one here. And I made like here a little bit of mistake, but we can fix that. If you make something mistake like that, you can say, okay, maybe I don't want to have that ending. So the end point is a little bit closer. So don't worry if you have like, if you made a mistake in your like line, you can always say like, oh, the beginning looks a little bit weird. So I can like put the start point a little bit further into the stroke. So now we get like a very straightforward line. And the only thing what you need to do right now is just go like, yeah, like speed up the rain movement and also speed up the offset and the trail length. You can make it like longer or shorter, whatever you think it's fit the best and the most for your video game. And you can like play a little bit around with the settings and stuff like that. So we can say the finish again, what we did earlier, the shiny 20%. I'm just going to do the waxiness for 30% and get the blue sweet spot 200%, so it looks a little bit watery. And then we're going in the opacity for like 50%, and now it's like almost not visible. And that's basically how rain works. If you don't really want to go for realistic rain, like I said, if you want to go for a cartoony style, you basically need to play a little bit around with this. So the more visible, it gets more cartoony. And if you don't like that, like this is falling like this, you can spread it out a little bit and put a little bit more copies. The more copies, the more raindrops will be falling, of course. So it really is really nice to play around with these settings. If you really want to have like a weather system where it's like also using like wind, you can go for the physical properties, and then we need to make it the stroke physical. So now we can just like say that like the wind strength is a little bit there. So if you have like something that you really want to like make it more that the rain is also affecting the wind, you need to be a little bit careful about this, because you don't want to make it floppiness or too floppiness, because if you're doing that rain like rain is not really doing this really in the real world. But you can play a little bit around with that, like the rain, the direction. Like if it's like it's very stormy, you can put it basically the wind strength, so now it looks like rain is like falling a little bit from the side. You can really play this a little bit around. Like if you think that like that's a little bit more of your style of doing so, you can play a bit around, but be careful with the floppiness here. Like I will not suggest to do 100% on the floppiness. Do a little bit of like 50% as well, and then play a little bit around with the wind strength. like so. So that gives a little bit more of like an sideways falling, and sometimes like the wind is like blowing a little bit. You can like play around with stuff like this to your own liking. So that's basically how you do like rain dropping, and it's very easy. It is, I always go for the more realistic style in rain, and so that's why I make this tutorial, to give you a little bit more of like a realistic raindrop vibe instead of like cartoony. But I showed it anyway, so I can like still like, of course, play around with that as well. And I kind of like to have the rain strokes a little bit smaller. So I really like to have that the rain is like it's barely visible, but still visible if you have a surrounding in your game. You can do a little bit of like jitter, so that the rain is not always in the same place. So like it goes a little bit of like randomness now, gives you a little bit more realistic vibe as well. So that's basically how you make rain and realistic rain. You can use this in your own creations, depending on if you have like a particular art style like cartoony, then make sure that the raindrops are a little bit more visible, because that will like fit your style better. If you go a little bit for a more realistic vibe, if you really want to make realistic rain, this is the way to do that as well. I really hope that you learned something today. I know it's like maybe a tutorial that maybe you already knew about, but I really want to like show a little bit more of like how to make realistic raining. I see it sometimes, and I don't want to shame or anything like that, but sometimes I see in the Dreamiverse, I see a very like cartoony game, and they're using, or sorry, then they use like a very realistic scene, and they're using a very cartoony rain falling, and that really takes me out of the immersive feeling. So if you're having like a very realistic scenery and your rain is very visible, it really takes you out of the experience of the whole environment. So if you have like something, like I said, like a realistic scenery or a realistic game, this is like how to do a proper like realistic rain falling. Now there is more to it. I will not do it as in this video. If you want more of like how to make like actually weather systems and stuff like that, I can do a tutorial for that as well, but I need to know that if that's requested. If people want to see that, let me know in the comments. If you want to know like a little bit more, because there are some things that like you can do as well, is because like rain, if rain starts to fall, it always starts to fall first with a few drops, and then it adds up more drops in the end, and like it's raining very quickly. Like rain is not always like it, of course it depends, but mostly rain doesn't always fall directly on the ground. It first starts very softly, and then in the end, like when like everything is falling down, then you get all that. I have that in Once Upon a Time Forest. So if you're curious how that actually works, just check out my Once Upon a Time Forest. That's where if you click on rain, then you can see that you see first a few drops falling, and then slowly after a few seconds you see that the rain is adding up more and more and more. I kind of like doing that because it gives you a little bit more realistic feel to how rain is falling. So that's basically it for this video. Let me know in the comments if this was helpful for you, and I really love to see a little bit more better rain dropping in Dreams creations, because I do see sometimes there's a little bit style break into the scenery and the weather that's like falling there. So I hope that this was a little bit helpful. I'm going to say thank you so much for watching for now, and I hope to see you next time. And don't forget to dream, everybody. Bye bye.